So today is June 9th, and I can't believe I'm saying it this late. We are officially getting a garden in. This is not our first garden that we're putting in at this house. We've been working tirelessly, honestly, for the last 2 weeks, it feels like. But this is our main garden. This is like the house garden, the one we'll be coming to all the time and checking all the time. So it feels really late.
Yeah, we're calling this the house garden because then it's so close to the house, we can run out on a daily basis and pick zucchini, pick cucumbers, pick things that need to get picked every day and checked over.
So this video is all about getting this garden planted and showing you what we're putting out in this garden space. Keep watching if you want to see what we got in here. This is a new property to us, and this is the original garden space that the previous homeowners did use. So as you can see, we kind of let it just get overrun with weeds, being that we were working on all of those other garden spaces, and gave it a quick till, and then we decided to lay a little bit of weed mat in here. We'll talk more about this in a minute, but this is what we chose to do. And then we are using our old drip irrigation on top of this, and we just gave the sides another quick till before laying out the irrigation.
We have tremendous weed pressure, so we weed matted some of it, and other stuff is not going to be very conducive to growing in weed matting, we don't think, so we're leaving that open and just going to have to keep up on weeding it. Got a lot of bindweed.
And it is brutal. We can't get rid of it really, so hopefully this will help. So what's up first on the list to get planted?
Zucchini.
Zucchini and artichokes probably, so we'll get those going.
Okay.
So you can see our weed mat job. I'm going to get another board to lay on the front here. And we also buried this weed mat, and we're going to burn holes in the weed mat. So here's a little quick visual of how we're burning our holes. We're just using coffee can. And that jig is a 2-foot spacing, but since we are using our old drip here, we are just going to make it kind of random spacing to accommodate those drip emitter points. Look at these artichoke plants. They look really good. I don't know which one's going to be the best use. We have a clamming shovel here for digging clams out on the coast. Obviously not here. Let's see if that'll work. If I make a little pocket and pop my start out and place it in there. Say that's okay. We are not experienced weed mat growers. This is our first year really using weed mat, so it's kind of a learning curve for planting in it. He did plant a big ground cherry patch earlier this morning, which we also weed matted, mostly because it'll be a lot easier to pick those ground cherries. But he used a drill that has like an auger on the end of it, but I don't really want to go get it right now, so we're trying this. There, and then I just push it to the side. These are all Imperial Star artichokes, and it's kind of the only kind of artichoke we'll try to grow anymore. I'd be open to other suggestions if someone knows of one that will work in our growing zone, because we treat this as an annual, because it will only produce this year, and then it'll die off this winter. So that's just kind of what we have to do to be able to grow artichokes. And this artichoke is kind of special because, like the variety is special, because it will flower its first year, and a lot of artichoke varieties, they need at least 2 years and they have to go dormant. So that's why we like this kind, and they taste pretty good too. Geez, what is it our first time? We forgot we like to turn the system on to get everything wet so we can see all our drip points. Being that we have this weed mat, though, we were just looking at the weed mat, but I'm realizing these plants are going to need water, so we need to turn that on. Compared to our other garden spaces, this garden's kind of small. It's about 60 by 60, or I think he remeasured it's like 80 by 60 or something like that. About 60 or 57 long, and then wide is about 80. And when we were looking at it, we're like, wow, why don't we just weed that? We can just weed that with the hoop hoe, it will be fine, but just this particular kind of weed is such a pain. We decided to throw the weed mat on. so that our weed pressure is only on the sides of this garden. And then we're hoping next year this will help kill it off if we really stay on top of it. Which last year we were able to really stay on top of our weeds, and we didn't really have weeds at the end of the summer. It was doing remarkably well. I am liking the climbing shovel. It's kind of nice. So something else we've experienced this year is with the weed mat, we have put it on and it's then later stretched really tight and then our holes have kind of moved. So if anyone wants to leave a comment about how to do the weed mat better as far as when to burn the holes with the heat of the day, that would be very appreciated. So now we are on to eggplant next, and he's planting out Hansel is the variety name. I'm finding landscape staples everywhere in this garden. How is it going popping those plugs in these holes?
Easy.
Way better?
Yep. Even if the soil's dry, just use my hand.
Here we are planting out some zucchini, kale, Swiss chard, a couple other things we just had already in plugs. We were kind of just figuring out where to put everything as we went. And then John is direct seeding some bush beans that we save every year, and we make sure to grow plenty of them so we can save them and grow them again in the future. Now it is time to get some trellises up. These ones in particular are for cucumbers, and the one in the back there is for some zucchini.
So it is June 10th, and we are already having some major negative feelings with some garden errors this year. We have an issue going on with our big field in the back, so we are just going to knock out this garden and try to get a lot of this one planted tonight, because hopefully we won't have soil issues in this garden, but more about that other garden later. So today we were putting up cattle panels for cucumbers and stuff that we're going to trellis on here. The method we're using for getting these on this year is I hold key wires. We're just using the top of the T-post to secure the wire to it and looping it under one of these horizontal braces. We have our direct sow seeds now. We are on to sowing some seeds. We're going to probably do, well, we're going to do green beans that are pole beans. And then we're probably going to hopefully do carrots and beets and get our onion starts in tonight. Let's see, what did I buy us for green beans? Because I know I bought some new ones this year. Surprise, surprise, I found some bush beans that we have. We have Carson and Dragon Landry. I'm not sure how to say that. We have Kentucky Blue pole beans and long yard beans. So I'm going to be getting some of these in. The bush beans will obviously not go right here under the trellis. Well, we got something done, but we're calling it for the night. Until tomorrow.
Okay, we are digging up some plants. This is probably not what you expect to see on a planting video, but we are out in our big new tomato garden that we just planted, and we are digging up plants because we are having a big issue with boron toxicity out here. John is going to share a little bit more about what is happening, as he had a soil test done last winter and noticed the boron levels.
So I came out here and I took a scoop or two of dirt and I transplanted some tomatoes that we had started in our greenhouse into it, and they grew and they grew and they looked healthy and happy and everything. And so I assumed, well, we're not going to have that toxicity issue. Turns out we do.
Yep, so a lot of plants, they're doing this where they are yellowing at the bottoms.
Look at the tops are kind of turning on their, let go, they're turning over on their own, like, and curling up, and just, they look like they're poisoned.
And some of them are doing this where they have literally just killed over right in the middle. They have this big dead spot and they are dying. And when we noticed this, it was a giant shock, and we knew we really needed to do something to try to save some of these tomato varieties out here. Something else we noticed was this crisping happening on a majority of the plants, where at the tips of the leaves, especially on the lower branches, it was turning crispy and brown. Through my research, I found that this may be happening as the boron comes up the stem. It has nowhere further to go as it is going through the plant, and that's why it ends up at the tips of the leaves and shows that browning that we just showed you a minute ago. And a majority of the plants in this field have that happening, which is so devastating. Our boron levels in this garden were 4.6 parts per million, and also through my research I found numbers as 0.7 parts per million as being recommended, and John found all the way up to 2 parts per million, but we are way over at 4.6 parts per million in this garden space. John's going to talk a little bit now about what he learned when he received our soil report back from the county extension agent and the train of thought at that time as far as this growing space.
Anywhere from like 3 to 6 is toxic, can be toxic. And there's like a fair bit of wiggle room where you may have like a pretty high level, but you may be able to get away with it. That's why he thought when he sent me the results back last winter that maybe it wasn't for sure doomed, but what we should have done when we got that soil sample back is we should have done our research, came out here and tried to leach the soil from it, because if you have a clean water source that doesn't have boron in it and you run a bunch of water on it, it'll leach it out of the soil. I don't know how much water it would take and how long and how effective it would be, but at least it would have been a better attempt than just what I did. Commercial ag producers, actual farmers, they add boron in their fertilizer in the spring. A lot of them do for certain crops, and it helps produce flowers. But a lot of people are nervous about adding too much. That's what I've found in my research, at least. It sounds like boron correlates highly with alkaline soils. We have a very alkaline soil here. Our pH is 8.6 on that test. Other parts of our property are quite a bit lower, and so that's why we're going to try to move it down there. Foolish as we were, you look around, this is the part of the valley that everybody grows hay in, and it's very luscious and green and gorgeous, and the topsoil is pretty much 8 feet deep. Like it's all topsoil down here. Just the thing is, the topsoil is alkaline, extremely alkaline. Down there it was 8.2.
Yeah, so the other garden is down over behind the barn there, and then our cornfield is down over behind that stock tank right there. And being this is a new property, we did soil samples in multiple locations, but now we're wishing we would have done it in every growing space on this property.
That cornfield down there had like 3 parts per million boron. It's significantly better than up here.
And just for reference, we pulled the soil sample at our previous house, and the boron level was 0.6 parts per million. So the grass is not always greener on the other side, even though over here it literally is greener.
It's much more luscious here where we moved, but turns out vegetables do not like alkaline or extremely alkaline, and soils laced with elements that they don't need too much of. So, did you see any peppers? Did you show any peppers? They're exactly the same thing as there's a bunch in this first 2 rows. You can see missing pods down there.
Here's a look at what is happening to our pathetic pepper plants. These are actually chilies right here, but they are doing the same thing as that tomato that I showed earlier, where they are dying in the center and just kind of snapping over. You can see it's not all of them. A lot of them are still upright and growing, and they actually look okay. The color is not great. They're not a dark green, and they're not really growing strong, but these have not been in the ground that long. So we're just kind of seeing what they end up doing, and you see how many there are. So we're pretty devastated about this, and we're hoping things can turn around. But what's likely more going to happen is we're going to have to work on fixing this soil or changing plants altogether. Here are some strawberry plants, and you can see that they are very small as far as how many leaves they have and flowers they have. A lot of them, actually, not this one right here, but a lot of them have like 6 flowers per 2 leaves. So they're not doing what they should be doing. And the color's a little bit off too. So we're thinking that our soils are just not what they need to be to help these plants thrive. Anyways, enough about this. Let's get back to planting the house garden and putting those tomatoes that we were digging up from this big garden space out into that house garden. If you want to hear more about boron toxicity and what we've learned and a little bit more about the research that we learned, we did put out a video on our channel that I will link here in the cards, and I'll probably put it at the end of this video as well if you just want to click on that to check it out and learn a little bit about it. You know, we've been growing stuff for 10 years or more, and this is the first run-in we've had with boron toxicity. It's something we honestly didn't even know about before, and there's always something new to learn when you're growing stuff, so check it out if you're interested.
This is all they've done, and they have just turned to crap. We tried, like, look at this one. It's really bad. Look at these. They were extremely root bound, I am aware, but they've hardly branched out at all, and they've just been sucking up death, apparently.
Alright, taking a quick little trip to move these down the hill, and we're going to plant them in the garden. Please grow. Please live. Now this garden space is going to end up looking a lot different than we originally intended. Now that we're throwing, I think there's going to be 20 or 30 tomatoes in this row. It's just a little bit different. We are also eventually going to squeeze some more tomatoes into this tight growing space, as we still have some starts in the greenhouse that are new starts that we were selling or going to be putting somewhere, and now we're going to be putting them out in this garden space to try them out. Please live. In all the frustration, we did decide to move a handful of winter squash, just like we moved the tomatoes, from that other garden into this garden space. So we are plugging them in wherever we're finding space. We ended up going with some of them on the weed mat, and we're just going to vine them towards the center and then some along the edges here. Not really optimal as far as planning on where everything's going, but we're keeping track of where things are, and hopefully we just get some produce. That's what we're wanting at this point. Now John is also throwing some more potatoes in here. We have 800 feet of potatoes in that back garden, but we don't know how it's going to do, so we decided to throw a row of potatoes in this garden space too. Here we are planting some more hatch green chilies in here because, again, we don't know about the back garden. We also threw a couple in the greenhouse. And now we are planting a couple more of those beans right here. These are, I think, those Carson beans that I talked about earlier in the video. And the things are just kind of coming together. And hopefully we end up with produce this year. That's kind of our big fear at the moment, that we won't have produce. On the other end of the garden, we are putting carrots, beets, and onions. Here we are getting the irrigation all set up. And now we are going to get some trenches dug. Okay, burying some drip tape. Not by hand. This is our first year with a Haas wheel hoe, and it's a double wheel hoe. We were really excited to get it this year. We opted to get the attachment that will hill and also dig. So we dug with it, and then we just decided to hill it with a hoe because we had it right there, and we didn't want to go switch the bolts around. But so far we have liked that tool. Really, we have liked it, though, for the wheel hoe part of it, for weeding purposes. I will also leave a link to that in the description. It's an affiliate link if you're interested in buying one. They are a really handy tool to have. And before I run out of time, I better tell you that we seeded beets and carrots in this garden right here. It is June 13th, and we are on to planting onions today. I know that's extremely late, it seems like. We actually had a frost last night, so we'll be talking more about that soon. These onions look amazing. I am so happy. Last year I had a major onion fail, so that's why I make sure to put onions in this video. But I'm so happy with the way these came out. We seeded 3 varieties this year. We seeded them back in March 2nd, and this is the state that they're at. I meticulously seeded exactly 5 onions per pod, and if I pull up a pod that has 5 that made it, you can see that that was maybe even too many for this little space. Look how great they look. I am really excited to do this. Last year we had to do onion sets that came from the store, and they did not get nearly as big as years before when I had done onions. Last year I accidentally killed all our onion starts. I overwatered them or something, and I grew them completely different last year. I did them in just a big flat and then planned on separating them. This year I decided to really try to do good work at it and do it this way, and it looks like it paid off pretty well. So we have, I want to show you another one with 5 real quick. Oh my gosh, they're so in there.
There's another one with 5. They are using up all of that soil. And this is more soil for them than I would have done with my previous method, the way I used to start them in just a big flat. So I kind of like this method for the future. So we have 3 varieties we're going to be trying this year. We have Allison Craig Exhibition onions. Those are like a nice white onion, it looks like. I think those are the ones that are supposed to be good storers. We have a red burgundy onion. And then our last tray over here, Patterson onions. Maybe these were the good storers. I can't quite remember, but I remember that was an intent I bought to find some that were good storers. So we're going to get these in the garden. We have the garden all set up with drip tape that is at 6-inch spacing. So we're just going to kind of pop them in as close as we can get away with still allowing them some space to hopefully turn pretty big. So let's get them in the garden. Feel those mosquitoes coming out. We're going to probably start with Patterson right in this row right here, and I have a row and a half to work with, so hopefully they all fit. So this is how we are separating them. We're just grabbing them and then kind of pulling them apart. And look how great those look. Awesome. And then look how great those look. We're just planting them along both sides of the drip tape, kind of meticulously yet again. It is nice and wet in there, so I think they should be good. And we're trying to allow them some space to get big. John doesn't think I'm giving them enough space though, but I don't want to waste any. A rock. We're not supposed to have rocks here. That's why we moved. What's with that? Are you kidding me? Oh my God. It's pure ice. June 19th, hard frost. Our predicted low last night was 41 degrees, and that was definitely not an accurate forecast.
Do we even try again? Probably not. She's probably done. These already look like junk because they got frosted once, but and these got pulled out of the other garden. But look at that. Ice. That's ice. That first small frost that we got was nowhere near this, and it was predicted to be 37 that night. That's ice. Don't worry, the kale will live. Who really cares at that point? Ah, eggplant. It's crispy. So sad. It's like it's been in the freezer. Kick the heater on in here. Things don't have frost on them. We have a couple more starts left, but not nearly where we were before. No frost. Thank God. This is not that much stuff though. It is safe to say we will not probably be selling anything this year. Huh. I still have that many chili starts. I don't even know if it's worth popping them in at this point. But we might. This is so disappointing. Look at all that work. Look at all that work. All that food to come. Just dead. Just frozen. Just frozen. There's ice on this mat. Are you kidding me? Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad. It's so bad. Look at them already decaying away, rotting. Ugh. Take a deep breath. Lots of dead baby plants. How do you get ice on a weed mat, you might ask? Well, we have a killing frost in June. Towards the end of June, you have a killing frost. Will these potato plants live? I don't know. We've never experienced frost this late. They're pretty frosty. They kind of seem like they'll be fine. And even if they do die off, they'll probably bounce back. Between the boron and the frost, like, you were already a goner from our first little frost. You weren't, but now you are. Oh, my goodness. And the soil that you're in is not favorable either. Look at that. It's crispy. Ugh. Now that some time has passed and we've had a moment to reflect on the frost that we got this morning, I am kicking myself for not running some sprinklers to try to get this frost off of the plants and salvage the plants. That has worked for us in the past, and it was so unexpected, and we were tired and we didn't realize that we need to run some sprinklers ASAP. So if we would have tried that, perhaps things would have turned out a little bit better. At the same time, part of our big hang up with this was that we had so many garden spaces this year. Even the big cornfield, that would have been something to consider. And at the moment, it just didn't seem possible to protect all of the plants. Now, after that frost, things did look pretty horrible, and a lot of things did die. But we went ahead and plugged along and plugged all of our last starts in, and this is footage of me just kind of getting the last few things in before we're kind of calling it for the year. I did germinate a couple other things in the greenhouse that are quick growing things like cucumbers and things like that to plug in later. It is June 25th, and this about wraps up planting. For the most part, there's a couple extra pods we're going to fill in with some stuff, like right here. This right here has been seeded in a seed tray. We're going to fill that in with cucumbers, but everything else is in here. And just going to kind of wrap it up pretty quick. We changed the plans a lot, given the state of everything else and our soil on this property. We are also really glad that we have this space to fall back on. This is inside of the greenhouse, and it has been planted out to tomatoes and cucumbers mostly. Cucumbers in this row right here, tomatoes over here, which we have some fruit setting on them. So, and they're looking really good and really healthy. And once they start reaching this, we will trellis them and they will be pruned heavily so that they can grow in this small of a space and be manageable. Over here, we have sweet potatoes in pots right here. And more cucumbers over here, which are looking really nice. So those are all by Alpha cucumbers. Over here, we did end up sticking a couple hatch green chilies in because of our other crop issues going on.
Over there are some watermelons and our original tomatoes that we started earlier, way back in March, way back over there. So kind of nice to be able to rely on this space, we hope. So we will see just how it progresses and what we are able to grow here. It's kind of a big, we don't know what's going to happen season.
Now, just for reference, this is a picture of our garden last year on June 27th, 2023. Today is June 25th, and you can see just how far behind we are this year. So this was at our previous house, and I just thought I would put this in here because it's pretty interesting for me to see. Please like and subscribe if you want to find out what's going to happen this season, kind of like we want to at this point. Thanks for watching.